Hey everyone. Um, in this video, I'm going to show you Google Ads dashboard app, which is for now Google Ads, but the whole idea about it is that it's going to become a dashboard where you can not only just look at data, but you can actually set up decision flows from it, or actually make plans, like campaign plans, or you can basically strategize with the help of this tool. So this is a work in progress. So right now it has only got, as you can see, 5 tabs. It starts with a welcome and setup. The welcome page just gives you an idea of what is really in the app, which I'm going to walk you through anyway, very quickly in this video. It also contains the setup part, which basically gives you all the directions as to what you really need to do, what kind of data, like say, stuff like developer tokens and all, basically how to connect Google Ads API with this tool, and how you can get started. It will only take a little while, so that I'm not going into that here. Also, I will run into some privacy issues, because those numbers are confidential. But this is what the aggregate overview tab will look like. So you have a start date and an end date. This is available in each of the tabs, and you can also compare it with any period. Okay, and you'll see that there are key performance metrics here, and you will see that for each of these key performance metrics, you get a nice box metric here, and cost, CPC, ROAS, CTR, clicks, impressions, conversion value, cost per conversion, AOV, and conversions. Your usual suspects are all here. And you can also see a nice little chart here. You can choose which of the variables you want to plot. So for instance, you can choose conversion value instead. You can see how ROAS has varied over time. You can take a look at that as well. If you are interested in CPC, for instance, you can also take a quick look here. You can see here that CPC has been more or less constant. It has been slightly going down, in fact, since the last 30 days or so. So you can see, yeah, $211,000. That's the kind of spend levels we're talking about here. But the point here is that you can now go into the campaign breakdown part. So that was your aggregate. You could also, as you can see, as you just saw, that you can choose a campaign to filter by a specific campaign. So in this case, we'll look at a shorter date, just so that it loads quickly. Remember, it's using Google's API, so it has to fetch the data, and you'll see that you can actually have a comparison period. So the previous period has been chosen here, and you have to click the campaign data, and you can also filter by a specific campaign name here. Now this is the campaign performance insight. So this is given no matter what your choice is, for the entire period that you have chosen. What is the total, the overall insight, like what is the total, or what is rather the top campaign in terms of revenue, what is the top campaign in terms of spends, and what is the top campaign in terms of the ROAS. So these three are given to you in numbers, and you can get an idea. Therefore, it becomes your sort of a benchmark for evaluating the rest. Now this is your top 5 campaign performance, and you get 3 metrics that you can choose here. You can also add another one. So for instance, you can add ROAS here, and you get all of these 3. You can also remove any of these if you want. Suppose I want to remove cost here, and you get a nice bar chart comparatively. You get in a grouped sort of fashion. You can choose up to 3 here. Remember, once you choose 3, you can only like remove one of these before you can add any further. The next thing is really the part that I'm most excited about, and this is where you get a sort of a rolling performance kind of a thing. So this is where you have last 3 days performance overview, and this is where last 3 days analysis has been compared with last previous 3 days analysis, apart from the time zone that you have chosen. So it's a kind of a hybrid table that you will see below, but before that you'll see that this is the last 3 days performance overview, where you actually see the average spend change in the last 3 days, and you also see the average revenue change in the last 3 days, and then a ratio of these two is actually been taken, and you'll see that the average delta, which is the ratio of the change in revenue with respect to the change in spend, this has to be positive. That's the whole point. So you can actually decipher from this that the revenue is actually going faster in comparison to the spends. So this again, for this particular account, for instance, this is actually pulling in profit data directly, using a tool like Profit Metrics. So what's happening is that within Google Ads, it's pulling in the data for revenue. Again, like I'm showing this only for Google Ads. This is right now, that is how what has been done so far. There's going to be more integration of other channels, which means then that these decisions will actually become more holistic, or more, far more data driven in scope, because it's going to take into account much more, a much bigger variety of numbers from more sources. So that's what's going to happen eventually. But for now, this is how it is. And you'll see now in, in the bottom, below it, you'll see the list of campaigns which are just hidden. But you'll also see other lots of metrics here. And you can actually see the change and the comparison metrics. All of these are coming from Google Ads for now, like I said. But eventually they might actually come from sources like either from GA4, or they may even, just to facilitate integration of multiple channels and a cross channel overview, or they may even come from different individual sources. But the evaluation metrics, for instance, the kind of metric which we just saw here, the average delta thing, this sort of metrics might actually come from either a sophisticated multi-touch attribution model, an MTA, or it may come from things like incrementality or marketing mix models. So that's the idea eventually. But right now, for starters, you can actually look at some useful metrics here, apart from cost and CPC, CTR, clicks, impressions, conversions, conversion value, and then the changes for each of these. Remember, this is you've chosen a date range on third of the, since the 3rd to the 11th of January, and you compare it with the previous period. So you get those change metrics. But you also get some interesting metrics, like say just share of cost, the share of revenue, and a ratio of these two. And you also get this delta that I just showed here, and you get it if campaign wise. This was across all campaigns for the entire account. And you'll see that there's conditional formatting given. These are the two most important additions here, I'll say. But there are going to be more. I'm going to be looking at rolling averages as well, and see how that also gives a good idea about, like if you're looking at moving average, instead of just taking like simple averages, you can actually take a rolling average or a moving average, which might just give you a more updated information about latest patterns and trends. So the share of cost by share of revenue, this is a ratio which actually should always be less than one, ideally, because you would want more share of revenue than a share of cost for a particular campaign. But you'll see that in most of these cases, that's actually not the case. It's well more than one, in some cases more than two, and even three in some cases. And you'll see the only ones which are green right now are not going to be, surprisingly, they're actually the brand campaigns. All of these in different markets, EU, USA, and Australia, correspondingly, these are the brand campaigns. And you might, you might not be finding this very weird, because brand campaigns sometimes do have a lot of revenue, but the spend levels are very less there, right? Again, I mean, this can be argued, are they even incremental? That's a very good question. As of now, this account does have brand campaigns active, though, as a mode of a brand protection exercise as well, because there are competitors which are very strongly also competing, even and bidding on these keywords. And then there is this delta ratio, which is a ratio of the delta revenue and delta spend for this, for the given period. And see that if it is in green, this means that the revenue is actually growing faster, compared to the spend level changes, spend change level. But in some cases, it's also red. So for those campaigns which it is for which it is green, it's actually a good sign, and there is a possibility that they would be able to spend the money. Also, there's another campaign here, if you increase the budget, I mean, scaling them. But there's also a column here which I think is very useful, which is percentage of budget spent in last 3 days. So this should be very close to 300% if it is spending the whole amount. It can be more than 300% if it's spending more than the budget allocated currently for the last 3 days. So you'll see that, if it is spending, say, this is just above 3, so it means that it's actually spending the daily budget of 520. And if you look at last 3 days spend, that's also given, and see that it's actually more than 520, right? So that's why it's, the budget percentage is more than 300%. So that means that there is actually a possibility of scaling this campaign, because in terms of ratio, it is almost break even. I mean, it's the change in spend is almost equal to the change in revenue. So there is some potential. But in this case, for instance, the budget percentage spend here, you will actually, just increasing the budget will not help, right? So from here you can already see the decision making, because the revenue is in the right direction, it's actually increasing more corresponding to the increase in spend in the last period. But what has happened is, that there's another factor to take into account, like the share of cost is actually much higher already for this campaign, compared to the amount of revenue that it is generating. So that's also something to be aware of. But the fact that it's actually generating in the last phase, in the last 3 days, and remember this delta is entirely for last three phase. This, however, this is not a very, this is obviously in the positive direction, so you will have to take a call between these two. But the share of cost is way too high, it's probably not a great idea to try and scale this campaign. In any case, we saw that the budget spend is actually 180% only, which is much less than 300%, which it should have been in case it was able to spend the whole amount. If you look at the absolute amount, this will also become clear, like in 3 days you should have been like 2100, or thereabout, if it was spending the entire amount, but it's only spent like 1256 in the last 3 days. So this is probably not a great candidate for scaling. So like this you can actually, decide, but you also have to take into account, like this is a multivariate exercise, right? So this is where, we will be, I will be updating this tool even more. And it's not just about the tool, of course the tool is only to facilitate decision making. Ultimately you have to take the decisions as an analyst, and that's where, as much ammunition you have, it's better. It's always better to have more, things up your sleeve, more tricks up your sleeve. And that can only be possible when you have the ammunition, and that ammunition is nothing but really deep dive analysis in a multivariate dynamic environment like this. Because then you also have to look at cost per conversion, you should be looking at, the change levels, you should be looking at, cost, conversion value by cost, which is your ROAS. So that has to be taken into account as well, right? um, so these are all the factors that have to be taken into account. Where's the conversion value by cost? I'll just take a look at that. It seems like it's only the conversion value by cost change here for some reason. But anyway, the whole point is that you can, look at, I will look into it if that metric is missing. It's an important metric. But the point is you should be able to take decisions much better in case you have a, clearer picture of how the things are evolving. Because you should not be looking at a static picture, you should be looking at the dynamic evolution of things. And thereafter you actually get a nice graph as well, like for different metrics. Once again you can choose three metrics, and in this case all of these will actually be plotted together. And you can turn on or turn off the comparison. I would suggest you turn it off if you want a neat and clean visualization like this. And you can of course download it from here as well as png. You can nicely see how the cost, in this case has actually been going down and then has got a sudden increase. And But the point is that once it has increased a lot, so far you can see that they were actually following very similar trend, like when the cost is dropping so is the revenue. But this massive spike suddenly, which has happened after 9th, of course it's only been like 1 or 2 days, in fact just 1 day or 2 days, if consider the end of 11th, then it has been reversed, right? It's inverse relationship. So that it has to be kept in mind. Maybe there was a massive spike in the last few days or all. So now the question is, how do we know where it is? Like you can go to product breakdown, you can go down further. This was at a campaign level, but you can add more granularity into this analysis. And then you can look at the the top 5 products, maybe over the same date range. This is a longer date range. You can also take a shorter date range from here, change it, and just see which of these products are actually spending more, right? So you can actually get an idea of more higher spending products that way. And not just higher spending products, but the products which where the ratios, you can see the ratios are here as well. What is the share of cost and share of revenue for these? And on the basis of that you can decide, like where you are probably spending too much and not getting as much in terms of sales from the products. You can also look at cost per conversion or conversion value by cost or ROAS. So all these things that that are there, that you can actually take into consideration. That is at a product level. You can again segment it, or you can filter it. Not segment it, sorry, you can filter it. Once again, you get highlights for top products by key metrics. But the most important thing is the change history. So there's a change history which is actually pulled from inside the account, and that can actually be read by this section here with the campaign breakdown. So here you can actually filter. So if you go down here, you'll see something that's written here. So you can filter by one campaign to see change history markers. So that is the interesting thing. The reason why I did it like this is because if there are multiple campaigns that you're actually viewing the chart for, and change history has happened on so many campaigns, right? And it will be too clumsy for all the campaigns the change history starts showing up. I can do that. I'm actually thinking of the what possibilities are there to do that. I'm still sort of thinking of that. All I need to do here is, therefore, for now, just include one campaign's name, and I will just check here if I can grab a campaign's name. So what I did is just I jumped into the change history section, and from there I grabbed one of the campaigns names, and I'm just going to filter for that name now. So I'm going to paste that, and I'm going to just search for exact match, and I'm going to ask it to load it again. So what it's now going to do is it's going to load this section, and it's going to load all the data again, but this time only for that one campaign. So see, the top campaign and this part here remains the same, but now this and also the the top campaigns by revenue, but it now shows only one campaign and the situation with this campaign. For this, it's actually the spend levels have gone up, but the revenue has gone massively up in the last in this period, which is 3rd of Jan to the 11th of Jan, which is why the revenue is going way faster compared to the change in spends. So that's a very good thing. It's definitely looks scalable. But one thing to notice here, you will have to also check other factors as well. By the way, for when you're just seeing one campaign, obviously the share of spend and the share of revenue will be just one, because no other campaign is being shown in this view. Again, something, if required, you guys, if you're trying this out and you need a different kind of orientation to it, just let me know. But we'll see every other metric for this campaign. But like I was saying just a while back, the main advantage of this particular section is that you can actually choose now, like a minimum budget change and a minimum bid strategy percentage change. So budget and bid strategy changes, these are the only two I've been pulling right now. And you can see that the comparison part is turned off. That's what I would recommend for this view, where you can actually choose, like if suppose you want to only show in the chart or, those changes which are minimum of 10%, that is something you can just show here. And in the performance over time chart, you'll see that the budget change has been shown here. That was one budget change, and you will notice that right at the bottom there's also a section that shows you the actual changes that happened. So on this particular date, on the 8th of January, there was actually a budget change which increased from 18, from, I think it changed, sorry, it decreased from 180 to 150. So this is where the budget actually changed. And notice that for this particular campaign, the budget has actually changed by 4.2%. Right. It has increased by 4.2%. And if you look at the blue chart also, I mean, in total, the spend compared to the previous period has increased. Of course, just by looking at this graph, it won't be clear. But what is important is that the budget was actually decreased. Okay. And we can see that there's an inverse relation. Like if we see that the budget does not have to be high, the revenue is still, it manages to be high on the higher side. Okay. So you can see that the revenue actually, this is the conversions part. The revenue has actually been going up. So if I just add conversion value here as well, and you should be able to see another line here. So you'll see that the red line also shows that the conversion value just spiked here, and that's happened after the budget has decreased. So it seems like, at least in the short period, I mean, of course, it seems to be, it has to be observed for a longer period of time. But it seems like a good thing that this the fact that you now are able to see from this graph the exact change that was done, it becomes much more contextual, right? So you can compare now the outcomes with the steps that you have taken in the account, and that ultimately gives you a holistic picture of how your optimization is going, and if it was in the right direction, and if it's the same kind of steps that you should be taking in the future as well. So it is much more contextual. It is much more like real time. And this is something, like I said, this is very account specific now, this is very channel specific now, right now. But this is going to become much more multi-channel. I'm going to try and see how, there are obviously ways I've been doing that, but just I'm going to try and build that into this application as well. How that logic can be built in, where the multi-channel and the cross-channel thinking, the thought process, and the strategic approach that you can take, instead of just depending on only one channel's data. That's something that I will be building into it. So do stay tuned for that. I'm leaving the link of this app. You just play around with it, and if you have any questions, if you've encountered any errors, of course, this is some still a work in progress. Do let me know definitely, and you can always reach out to me over LinkedIn, or you can just comment on the YouTube video itself. So hope this was useful. Hope you find the app useful. Always happy to discuss ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.